Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I am your host, Aggelos, and I am joined once again by my co-GM over at Hands of Fate, Stormzlord. How are you, sir?
Doing great tonight, yeah.
Excellent.
Doing great.
Good to have you on the show again. And, of course, our guildie over there, Alpha Soul. How are you?
Doing great. Fantastic
Excellent.
today.
Excellent. Glad to have you guys here. And, of course, we got a fun show planned for all of you listening to our podcast this week. We've got some new news coming out of Intrepid Studios that we're going to talk about briefly, as well as the new June pre-order store stuff has been put up, as well as we got a few of the concept arts from previous months, I think last month or whatever, have now had models done of them, so we're going to talk about those. And finally, we're going to wrap it up with the live stream that happened on the 4th of June, I believe it was, where they showed off some of the PvP and castle siege mechanics that they were kind of playing around with in the Alpha Zero client, as well as the Q&A. So I think you guys will really enjoy what we have planned. Before we begin, of course, I got to give a new shout out to Ika Sugami. Yes. She's our new patron over at patreon.com/Dungeon Crawler Network. Thank you so much, Ika Sugami, for supporting us and what we do over there. All that goes to help fund the show and everything we do. So thank you so much for being a part of that. We also had 2 anonymous 5-star reviews on the US store this week alone. Thank you so much for that. Obviously, if you don't write anything, I don't know who left them, but please know that I do know that you left them. I just don't know who you are, but we do appreciate it. So thank you so much for those reviews. They definitely help us out. They let people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and sometimes it matters. All right, let's go ahead and jump right on into the news. Before we get into the discussion kind of part of the news, there was a PR email sent out yesterday, I think it was, which is actually kind of funny. We were going to record the show last night, and I'm sure you guys can tell, but allergies have been hitting me hard here in Pennsylvania. It's been a mess. So we didn't do a show yesterday, and I guess it kind of worked out because the email came in Thursday morning. So, hey, guess what? Now we can talk about it for a little bit. Just some quick things. They announced they have some new hires working at Intrepid Studios, and in the email they said, "We brought on 7 new folks to the Intrepid Studios team, and while we can't announce them yet, we will be introducing each one of them to the press and our fans at the end of June. There will be names you recognize, I'm sure." So that's actually really exciting. I know that they're busting at the seams in their little studio, so it's nice to see they're getting some more developers. And I have a feeling that some of these 7 are probably from the Daybreak fiasco that happened last month.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of people out of work from Daybreak.
Last count it was 70.
Yeah, I think 70 is the right number, or very close to it. They said they just completed a 2-week straight stable test with over 2,000 players who are sworn to silence by the NDA and honor-bound to keep their secrets. That's right. We won't say anything. We're getting closer and closer to Alpha 1 testing phase, and we even showed off some of the updated gameplay on the recent live stream that we're going to talk about. All this means that they are currently ahead of schedule for the Alpha 1 deployment. Once we've hit a solid state, we'll be sure to sound the horns and let the cat out of the rather large bag of holding. I like the little joke they made there. That's funny. So they are ahead of schedule for Alpha 1, which was scheduled for Q4 of this year, I believe. It was the end of 2018, right? For some odd reason, my head 2019 stuck there, but I think that's like beta testing, stuff like that. So we could potentially see Alpha 1 before very early in Q4, because whenever I think Q4, I literally think the end of Q4. You know what I mean? Like the week before it ends.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe
Classic. program.
Yeah, classic everything. Oh, it's coming in Q4 of whatever year. That pretty much just means they have up till December 31st. And oftentimes it's pretty much that week. Because actually, if you think about it, the first Alpha Zero test started the week of Christmas last year.
Yeah.
So,
right. Yeah. I'm actually curious to know if they mean that they're ahead of their previous announcement, which was saying that it would start somewhere in early Q4.
That's what I'm curious about. Like my cynical mind makes me think that we'd see it early Q4, not the end of Q4. So some people may complain, "Oh, well they said Q4, it's Q4." Yeah, but Q4 is 3 months. You know, are we seeing it in October? Are we seeing it in December? There's a difference.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly thinking we'll see it closer towards Thanksgiving-ish area. Stuttering my words here because I can't breathe real well. We'll see it in Thanksgiving type area instead of Christmas if they're ahead of schedule, because that's like 3 months ahead, which is pretty neat. They do have new cosmetics, new art, and a bunch of other stuff that they have up on their website, which we will be talking about some of those. But they left us a little teaser in this email saying, lastly, we want to leave you with a bit of a teaser of things to come. See, literally. We've got some very exciting business developments in the works, and while it's not 100% official yet, we can't share the news with you. I hear my cat over there, and it's really starting to freak me out. Get out of here, Catchy. Go. There we go. Lastly, we want to leave you with a little bit of teaser of things to come. We've got some very exciting business developments in the works, and while it's not yet 100% official, we cannot wait to share the news with you guys. Yes, I see what I'm trying to read their wording. I'm like, it's so weird. It's like, make of that what you will, but don't worry, we promise it's good news for all of our fans all over the globe. Can I make some like tinfoil hat speculation?
Please do.
Remember after our interview in episode 42, Steven said a phrase that pretty much lit the Discord on fire. They plan on self-publishing in the U.S., which kind of ran contrary to what they said before, where they were going to self-publish all over the world. Now, obviously, there's a lot of legal snafus, and Steven even went to the Discord and said, hey, guys, listen, there's a lot of legal loopholes we have to deal with in order to get self-publishing in other regions that we might not have been aware of at the time. And it may not be possible. We may have to go with a third party to publish, but don't worry, we'll retain creative rights. My guess, because of that last phrase, is that they've secured self-publishing in all regions. That would be my guess.
Possibly.
Interesting.
In no way does anything I say reflect Intrepid Studios in any way. This is just theory. There. Disclaimer out of the way. But honestly, that's what I think it is, specifically because they said about players from all over the globe. So let's see how right or wrong I am with that one. Any comments on the quick little news items that I didn't even really give you guys heads up on because I forgot they were there until we started the show? No? It's pretty straightforward.
I think it's interesting if they can self-publish. I think it'd be very interesting if they could pull off self-publishing around the world. That'd be a good idea.
Oh, definitely.
We'll see. If that's what it is.
All right. Let's go ahead and move into the first little bit of news that we have, which they released the new June pre-order store items. So if you haven't seen those yet, if you head on over to ashesofcreation.com, they're in the 4 packs, which, again, we're not going to go over the pricing and which are which because we've done that in the past. But obviously there's different cosmetic rewards. If you're already bought a pack, you'll be able to actually buy these things on an ad hoc basis, like one at a time. So we're going to talk about these, kind of give our little opinions. The first one is the Tormentor's Visage. It's the mask anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up on the screen for those who want to see it. There will be links to these in the description below if you are listening on the podcast in the audio form only, so you can look them up at your will. it's kind of got a weird orc feel to it because it looks like it has bones coming off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I say orc because I'm thinking from the classical Tolkien-esque orcs. I could see them wearing it, but it's shamanistic, witch doctor looking, I guess. So for those listening, the mask is only a mask that goes over the face, the mouth, not the entire face. Wraps around the head, and in the front, there seems to be these two little, I don't know what you would call those, little metal half circles that come down, and the entire side, which would be a veil, is nothing but what looks like bones are very, very large teeth. It's neat if you like that kind of tribal witch doctor look. Because honestly, the first thing that came to my mind was the witch doctor from Diablo 3.
You know, the first thing that came to my mind on this was the I don't know why, but you know, on SWTOR, the what are they called? The mirrorless, the blind suckers that wear those masks of their faces.
I didn't play SWTOR, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But what they wear, it kind of reminds me, even though it's completely reversed. I don't know why.
Huh.
It just kind of looks like it.
It, quite frankly, with this one, it screams very World of Warcraft to me. Like even the design, and I know with the exaggerated design from a concept art point of view, it really does feel like the orc shamans would wear this in Warcraft. That's my thought.
Yeah, I see
Yeah, it's
that.
got that style.
Right. All right, so that actually is, if you're buying it ad hoc, meaning you already have a pack and you're going to be buying this stuff, you can get that by itself as well, so you could check that out. Next up, we're going to talk about the Seer of the Infinite, a.k.a. Tentacle Sperm. There we go.
Pretty close.
I mean, really,
Yeah.
there it is on the screen. It's Tentacle Sperm. Yep. Tentacles.
Or
Sperm.
scrotum with an eye, basically.
well, you know, either way.
Yeah. I mean, I get what they're trying to do. It's essentially a D&D beholder, but it's like a tadpole. So if, again, people in the podcast that just listen to audio are like, what are you seeing? Right now, imagine a tadpole, or sperm, you may pick, with an eyeball in the bulbous part and little beholder-like tentacles coming off the sides. That's about it. Now, picture that in your head. There you go. I mean, frankly, it looks like a tadpole or sperm. Yeah, okay. I don't know. Is there anything to really say about it? I didn't really like beholders. They're never really my thing in D&D, so... they always annoyed me whenever they came up.
Yeah, it's a pet.
It's a
right?
pet. Yep. So you'll have a little innuendo incoming. So if you have young kids, please stop their ears for the next 15 seconds. So you're going to have a little sperm falling around your butt. Because it'll follow behind you.
Or it could fall in front of you. It's appearing in front of you.
Oh, like
Either way,
like going
it's not
away
good.
from you. Yeah.
That's right. Either way, it's not good.
If there's a pet command and you can make it move in front of you, you're almost ejecting it from your person.
You could be injecting it. Stretching that one, aren't you?
And you know, people, that's what they'll do if you
Yeah,
could.
I know. I'm really pushing the limits on family friendly with that one. Next up, this one actually was kind of neat. It is the Shell of the Ancients, which is a mount, and there it is up on the screen right now that you can see for your viewing pleasure. And again, if you're in the podcast, it is in the description. From the way they described it, it's going to be big.
And it's in my cart.
What was that?
And it's in my cart.
Stormzlord's already bought it.
Gotta buy the space turtle.
It is. It's literally a space turtle. It is a giant tortoise that you would sit on its shell, but its shell has this very opal essence sort of feeling to it. It's opal is actually a really good term for it, because if you ever seen an opal, there's the weird multicolored, shell or whatever, and some actually seashells have that same little quality to it, the multicolor section. But so we obviously know Storms likes it. Alpha,
I think it's okay. I've been debating back and forth whether or not I'm going to get it. I actually, the thing that's most appealing to me about it is the shell itself. If something has, a shell like that, it's, I probably am going to get it, to be perfectly honest.
Well, you have 1 month to do so.
Yeah, I got some time to stew on it.
Just think about it for a little bit. Now, if I was going to buy anything from this entire pack, it's probably going to be this next thing, which is called the Star Chaser. Obviously, you can see it here on the screen, and I swear each one of these pictures just gets bigger and bigger because every time I pull it up on the screen, it like takes over one of your faces, and I have to like resize it. The reason why I like this is, picture in your mind, it actually looks like a Greek boat from the shape, because you see that ramming horn right in the front? That was something that was done in ancient Greece before the beginning of the Roman Empire, so very long ago. Most boats don't have that ramming horn anymore. Well, not even as you got closer towards medieval and then, colonial type times, they did away with the ramming horn. That was very much an ancient world kind of thing that they've done. It also has what looks like a giant sundial. I'm assuming, because what's going to happen is you'll see this in later versions. This is very much tied to the celestial bodies. But I've always liked the rowboats, essentially. The Greek boats, the Viking boats, the long ships, because they all had the oars. It's pretty neat. I really, really like this one. But this one's definitely Greek-inspired. Definitely Greek. All right. Next up on the docket, this is the freehold appearance, which is called Velkor's Eye. That is getting pulled up on the screen right now. Thank goodness it's actually a fairly decent size and didn't blow up my entire screen. For those on the audio version, this is a stone castle. Very square looking in shape, gray stone. But to the very top, where there are these little pinnacle crown looking things, there is what appears to be, I don't know, like multiple sundials that almost appear in what is almost looks like a telescope in a weird way, but it's projecting light back at you. So obviously it's magical. What do you guys think about this thing?
Is it the whole castle, just the telescope?
No. This is a freehold appearance. So this is an entire building.
All right, so I'm trying to read through the description, right? So with this custom freehold appearance. Okay, so it is the whole thing.
Yep.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah, so like I said, it looks like a squat tower, because it's not really a full thing. It's got one little gate in the front, and it's a tower in appearance, but at the top, it almost kind of reminds me of Orthunk, with just more spikes on the top of it, if you ever watched Lord of the Rings. But then there's that weird sundial type looking thing kind of projected off into the sky and kind of redirecting light back to the top of the castle. I really just want to stand on the top of that, like Saruman in the movies, and just like chant on the top of it.
To me, it seems like a telescope.
It does, but when you're looking at it, you can tell there's no actual connectivity there. It's light shining back down on you, nothing else. Those rings are free floating in the sky.
Yeah, they are. They're not connected to anything.
Nope.
It looks like.
They are not connected from this angle anyway. They're not connected. They are free floating in the sky and redirecting that light energy back at you. And to kind of break the fourth wall a little bit and bring another game into this, the thought that I thought of was the Welkin Stones from Elder Scrolls, where the Aliens were channeling pure starlight down into their dwellings using the Welkin Stones and perform their magic. So what I'm seeing is from a lore perspective, if I were to guess, those rings are channeling that star's energy back to one area. Because even if you look at the details, peer into the stars with this custom freehold appearance, is it a telescope? It could be with the peering side, but it honestly kind of feels like they're projecting the light back to you.
And actually closer it does.
Yeah. The final thing is the costume, which we are going to pull up here, called the Threads of Fate. Not to be confused with our guild, Hands of Fate. Maybe I should make everyone actually get this. for the guild. You must have this.
The guild uniform.
That's our new guild costume. I don't even know where to begin with this one. Seriously, if you're listening to the podcast, pull over. If you know where it's safe, pull up the image, and then I don't even know what to describe this thing as. I mean, it's definitely tribal. You can tell that right off the bat. You have what appears to be part of a skull as a knee covering. It looks like there's bones across the ribs. And then you have this weird Medusa-esque helm off the top, but it covers the eyes, right? And that seems to be a motif in a lot of different, I don't want to say religions or cults, but you see there's the one red gem at the top, which would symbolize one overseeing eye.
Yeah.
But just like going back to the boat, which was Greek in origin, do you remember the fates in Greek mythology? They also controlled, what was it? Threads. Those were representing a person's life. So is this one of the fates that they're talking about in Greek mythology? What do they actually have a name? Do you remember?
No.
Let's see. I'm trying to. Hey, I just realized something. Atropos was one of the gods that cut the throat, or the threads of fate. One of our friends here uses a Greek name for that. Anyway, they're just referring to him as Fate, but they had different names. The three women who represented fate in Greek mythology were Clotho, the spinner, was this Lycanthus, the Allottor, and Atropos, inflexible. So Clotho spun the thread of human fate. Licentius dispensed it, and Atropos cut the thread, thus determining the individual's moment of death. I just learned something new about one of our friends. He's kind of creepy. But yes, they are the Greek fates. So Threads of Fate, it's definitely paying homage. Actually, if I'm looking back at almost all of this, now that I see that and I'm putting two and two together, we have the Threads of Fate. We have a very Greek-looking boat. The mask, I guess you could kind of see that as more of an oracle-type mask. The only things that don't fit in this are the flying sperm and the castle. The Velkars, whatever, but it definitely has a lot of Greek influence in this entire patch, or this entire pre-order set. Huh. Neat. Okay. Well, guys, anything you guys are buying from that set? Now that I actually read all that, I almost want to get the costume just because of the lore idea behind it. Like, if someone really thought that out, that's pretty neat. I'm sure someone did, but yeah. Interesting. All right. So, the next bit of news that we have is they released a few models from the concept art that they released last month. Now, I know we were pretty hard on the concept art, so I'm going to bring it up here. This is going to be here in the center of the screen. We're going to show you this, and let me expand it out a little bit so people can actually see this concept art. Beautiful. So, this is the concept art that we talked about, I think, 1 or 2 episodes ago. Specifically, we've seen the bow before, that wing bow. I think at this point in time, people were like, it's concept art, it's concept art. When you see the models that I'm going to bring up next, I think we're fair to start judging the concept art just by itself. Because it's almost a direct, an almost direct remake. So we're going to bring those up. We're going to talk about those. First up, as you can see here, we have 3 of the models in place. In the concept art that they showed us, they have a mace, what is either a staff or a spear, I don't really know, a 2-handed sword, the bow, and a crossbow. We talked about the bow before, but we're going to talk about it again because they do have the models. Now that you've seen those, we're going to go ahead and bring up the first one, which is the mace. And to be honest, I have no issue with that mace whatsoever. I think that's actually a beautiful mace that's functional. It's definitely detailed, but I can see it being functional. Alpha, what about you? You've been quiet on this one.
Well, none of these really appeal to me.
They don't really appeal to me either. Too many wings.
Yeah, they're just kind of, I'm just like, meh,
yeah.
for them.
Yeah. Well, and from a model perspective, I do enjoy the mace. Like, this was actually something that I was kind of hoping was going to be the entire art style going forward. This would have been something that would have been considered a legendary mace because of the detail that went into it. Maybe it still is a top-tier mace, but it's at least somewhat usable in an actual combat situation. So I was very excited to see the mace. The next one that we're going to bring up here is the bow itself. Now, we've been critical of the bow in the past, and yes, I'm still critical because there's a few things I'm not real fond of, but I mean, it actually turned out pretty well from the 3D model, from the concept art, but it does look like the concept art.
It looked real close to it.
The second image that you see on that screen, that is the front profile. Thank goodness they at least thinned the profile up, right? That's always a big thing. Like, is it too wide to function as a bow?
Yeah, they did thin it up. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Once again, my only real complaints is the overuse of wings, which I get are probably a racial motif for elves, which means I just want to kill elves more. But the wings don't seem to be too much of a hindrance on the front. I still think they need to choose one handle. Like, is it in the front or is it the back? Get rid of one of the handles. I don't like that from a structural point of view. I think that really calls into it the structural integrity of the entire bow. But, hey, whatever. Otherwise, it looks pretty neat. Okay. The final one. Now, this is the one that I probably have the most amount of complaint about. And I shouldn't say complaint. Let's not say complaint, because it actually doesn't look too bad. But for those who don't know me in real life, I actually collect quite a bit of real-life swords, and I am a hobbyist blacksmith who likes making blades. So, there's a few things here that I kind of wanted to bring up about this. First off, let's look at the blade. And this is actually, I'm going to offer some criticism for the people developing this, so you could take it or leave it. Hopefully you take it. But let's talk about this design a little bit. The triangle-shaped blade, or the leaf-shaped blade, that was actually, there were leaf-shaped blades in history. Now, you'll notice that the leaf shape of blades tended to disappear after the early Iron Age, because what they were doing was, the reason why you were doing a leaf-shaped blade is because they needed to give a little bit extra meat to the actual business end of the sword, right? To give it a little bit of staying power, because at that point in time they were dealing with bronze and iron, low quality iron, before they really moved into and discovered how to refine steel. So they often bulked the blade up to do the business end of the cutting. That's why you saw a lot of leaf-shaped blades in particularly early Greek styles, and some of the early Celtic blades tended to have that leaf pattern. But that tended to go away once the metal started getting better, because you could actually retain an edge with steel that you didn't need so much extra weight and mass on. Personally, the blade would look great if they thinned up that edge. I don't think they need the leaf blade. The second thing that I noticed is on the third image that you're seeing here, the parrying hooks. All right? That section in between where the handle is, the cross guard, and the parrying hook, is called what's called the ricazo. Okay? Now I'm going to switch the image here to kind of give an illustration of what a ricazo was. A two-handed weapon, the two-handed sword, was actually used by frontline people to A, break spears, or B, reach over shields. So right there we got a gentleman wielding a two-handed sword, using his hand on the ricazo to grip ahead of the crossguard to do what he's doing right there, attacking above a shield line. So that's how he's using the two-handed sword, which is pretty awesome, to be frank. I don't think you need to change that. So going back to the main image here, as soon as I can find it again, there it is. So we got the image back on the screen. If they could shrink down that center section, you see how wide it is, like that second wing or whatever? If you could make that about the same length of the blade and make that an actual legit Rikazo, that would be awesome. That would be fantastic for a two-handed weapon. Finally, the last bit. The handle is probably a little too short, and the crossguard is way too thick. I think that would definitely need to be trimmed down a little bit. One option would be, in my head, would be to use a flat, straight crossguard. Okay, so I'm doing this in the camera. It's going to be straight across, and then have the wings kind of twirl around the actual bars coming off the crossguard. The other option that I thought of, I didn't think of, I found an image of, was someone tried to do one where they just thin the whole thing up. So I'm going to bring that up on the screen as well, where they insisted on using a wing motif, but as you can see, it's a lot thinner than what they're actually doing there. So otherwise, the sword looks pretty good. I would get rid of, personally, because of, you know, I don't think that a two-handed greatsword was ever leaf-bladed, because by that point in time, you didn't need to worry about that. Swords weren't that long when you're dealing with bronze or early iron, or they'd bend too easily. Get rid of the leaf blade, fix the Rikazo, and thin up that crossguard. Or go a straight bar and wrap the wings around the bar would be my thoughts. Guys, what about you? I expended all my ideas.
So from a sword perspective, I don't really have too much of it. It's pretty cool, but not too much perspective. From a 3D model perspective, I think it's awesome. The mace and the bow, to whoever's modeling these is just phenomenal. From having to do just one, and what that would turn, that's just tremendous work to 3D model that out. Especially the detail they have, it is just incredible.
Right, and with Unreal, like, this was one of the complaints I had early on, is you don't have to go big and gaudy in order to get the detail. You could see the detail in the blade. Alpha Soul, how about you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, of the ones that I see, honestly, the blade's probably the only one. Like, if they happen to sell them, that I would probably get. I do agree with your assessment, though. The blade looks, I mean, it looks too thick, if you will. It almost looks like a short sword to me because of the way it's so thick. Or like a gladius, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. But you're right. Those early blades did have that leaf because they were also shorter, too, so you were able to pack more steel into it. But a short sword did not have parrying hooks. Those were specifically designed for two-handed blades, because two-handed blades were, what were they doing? Breaking spears and ripping into shield walls. That's what they were designed to do. So from the elegant perspective, like I said, that leaf-shaped blade, if they thinned that up and that was just a straight blade all the way to the edge, I think the blade would be gorgeous. I just think they need to do something about that crossguard and the Rikazo. You can keep the detail, you just need to drag the Rikazo closer to the length of the blade, because that's what it was. It was actually just an unsharpened part of the blade, sometimes wrapped in leather, but in this case it could be detailed, where a swordsman could safely put their hand to hold on to it, right? That's what you're doing. You have one here and one on the other side to hold the sword in, like the image I showed. You couldn't grab that with your hand because that second prong of wings would then pierce your hand. So it kind of does away with the whole Rikazo anyway. So, yeah. I'd be interested to see once they're in game with somebody, but the other ones, I don't really have a complaint. The mace is amazing. Keep it exactly as it is. The bow looks decent. I will take I thought they did a good job, even though they had to put wings on it. Okay, they kept it trim, which I know that was a complaint we had before. So good on you guys, Intrepid, for taking that feedback and keeping the profile of your bows to a more realistic point. But yeah, the sword, that would be my thoughts. So I definitely encourage the modelers, when you get this stuff, look up some historical models. Like, there's a reason why swords like that were made that way, because they worked, right? So use that. Cool. All right. Let's see here. Okay. That is it for the images. We are going to move on to the last section of the show. We had the June 4th live stream where they did release a ton of concept art. We'll have a link to theaocdungeon.com because they had a nice write-up, and they did post all of the images. So you can check those out there. But let's talk about the actual live stream before we get into the Q&A. Even though they did the Q&A first, let's actually talk about the castle siege. It's pretty neat to see the castle in the A0 client, right? Did you guys watch it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
well, I'm going to let you guys talk for a little bit because I've been talking a lot, and I'm kind of done. So what were your guys' thoughts on the entire live stream? Anyone?
Well, I particularly enjoyed it for a couple of reasons, but it may not be apparent. Like, one of the main things that I noticed was some of the changes in just how smooth and fluid they seem to be moving. Like, there seems to be some advancements in how the characters move, and kind of like when they first came in and they started showing the live stream, you had the guys mounted on horseback, and I actually thought they looked really well with how they were moving and going off. The dismount was a little bit wonky because they just kind of disappeared, or after that. But I thought that was interesting, and then I did see that the performance, at least within the castle, as they were going through with X amount of people, it didn't seem to be slowing down. It seemed to be taking it pretty well. So that was pretty encouraging, and that's kind of what I was looking out for.
Gotcha. No, it's actually funny that you mentioned that because I didn't even really take too much notice of that. But you're right. They really did show off nicely that the engine was handling pretty well with those people on there. I did see the horses, and I know they're early, so that's why I know he said animations are not really there. Because those horse animations, I'll tell you what, that horse must be reanimated because it's got some rigor mortis going on. It's like, want to move, but joints are so stiff.
I was actually noticed that the fluidness as well. It was just, to me, it was tremendous. The advancement that from one to now, just amazing. I just want to get to the Alpha 1 to see where we're at, right? Because this is just a leap forward.
I know some people in the chat were talking about they almost specifically only were working on tab targetable skills, and they did mention that that's what they're working on first, getting the tab target down, because there is no action combat in the game yet. And for those who may just be joining us or maybe don't know, the game is a hybrid. This is not BDO, so don't expect BDO. It is actually going to be a hybrid of tab target and some skills also allowing you to have more of a template-based attack, or what you would know as action-oriented. So it's going to be a little bit of a mix. Quite honestly, if I were to, again, take my personal opinion, I'd say it'd be closer to Guild Wars 2 than it would be to Black Desert Online. That's my thought. So they are trying to find a correct blend for that. UI, they've made a few changes, but again, this is once again still just an old UI that they are working on. I know they said for that test they had about 40 people on playing the test, so that was kind of neat. And they were able to stay above 60 frames. From a development perspective, Stormzlord, what do you think about that? Anything?
I'm not sure. Alf, what about you?
To be perfectly honest, I don't code anymore. I'm more on the product management side. So keeping over 60 frames, I'm assuming, is a good thing, but I wouldn't be able to practically tell you, or provide a good opinion on that.
From that perspective, right? So if you're looking at it, to keep it all going at that rate, right? As you're adding more stuff, everything you're adding to it, whether you can see it or not, is affecting the engine as it renders, because it's rendering not just only visible, but invisible depending how they set it up. Also, with what they're having with the effects, just 5 years ago, the effects that they have flowing in there now would slow down your. So to be able to keep that frame rate up where it should be in the right set is tremendous. I've never had to keep it at that level. I've been lucky not to yet, but that I'm really at awe they can keep that going and hope they can get it better.
Right.
To be able to do that as they add more and more and more, just because right now you've had 40 people in it at a time, right? With the effects, with the spills, with everything going on, all the NPCs. As you start going, let's go to 100, right? So what you're going to look at is a hockey stick. You're going to go for, let's start at 10, 40, 100, 150, 200. And what you want to do is you want to catch where that hockey stick goes, and you figure out where that happens.
Right. Absolutely. All right, we're going to move on to some of the question and answer section. I pulled out a couple that I thought were pretty neat. Once again, we talked about this in our past episodes where we talked about the corruption system and how death, and it was brought up that death was one of the ways that you're going to get rid of corruption. But they did answer that saying that the only alternate way that we've talked about so far is doing quests to get rid of it. Religious-focused quest can send you through ways of getting rid of that corruption, becoming part of the world again, and getting rid of all the corruption. It's looked at this time as a time sink, so it won't be easy or quick. It's probably going to be the only alternative getting rid of corruption outside of dying. I think we talked about that. I feel like when we first discussed the corruption system, when the show was in single digits, which, by the way, I don't think I even mentioned this, but this is our 50th episode as well, which is often a very big milestone for podcasts that, when they hit 50 episodes. So that's actually pretty cool, especially for a weekly show, because, podcasts are meant to be, well, I shouldn't say meant to be, but the standard is once a week. So that's pretty cool. My wife just showed up, and she looks like really excited. I am in the middle of the show. Is this something you would like to tell me? Okay. Oh, okay. That's off topic, but I got my wife in. Yeah, I'm on a show. Thank you. My wife's watching The Office, and apparently she was almost in tears. So, So she had to come down and share that with me because I got her into The Office. That's one of those shows where I can watch it over and over and over again. My wife is like, this is so boring. Why are you doing this? Until she sat down and watched it. Now she's more addicted than I am. So,
I can do the same. My wife won't watch stuff.
I don't know what it is. I just really like the show. And I can put that on almost any time and be okay with it. Like, it doesn't matter. So I'll continue going down this list. But Storms, why don't you take the next question? That was pretty cool. Do you have it on the second link?
I do not.
That were brought up. Yeah. I'll say the next one. They were saying, are there going to be completely unique legendary quests or bosses that drop unique items, skills, or titles? And they answer that there's definitely something they want to do. They think the idea of legendaries, that there is one momentous event that happens once. It makes those things more special. Maybe we spend a lot of time on it and everyone gets to experience it only once, but the memories from that last from that are maybe a bit cooler. Like the sleeper event in EverQuest that everyone apparently was part of. Even people who didn't play, they were at the sleeper. That was a huge thing that only happened once on a server. The whole dungeon changed. It was kind of that idea of, hey, things change in the world, and the world reacts to what you're doing. Doing more of that is really exciting. Doing it in a way where it's not just killing a boss. It might be finding a unique mount, a legendary recipe, etc. I love those ideas. I really do. It reminds It reminds me of the Gates of Encourage, Vanilla WoW.
Oh, yeah, when they opened, right?
Yep, because only one person got to actually, well, there was actually a bug. Multiple people got to ring it, but it was only within like a couple hours. So if you saw anybody with like that black bug mount, it was the only bug mount you could get that you could ride outside the world. There's like 6 of them. And if you got them, they could be ridden inside the dungeon. But there's only one that can be ridden outside, and it was the black one. So if you saw somebody with that, you're like, whoa, they were there, you know?
Yeah.
I really like that idea. Storms, you want to take the next question?
We talk about the 2.4.
2.4? It's the high-level crafting question. I'll link it again in the...
Yeah, link it again, because I don't have the right link. Sorry.
I'm just...
High-level
this is not a crafting question.
I don't know. I'm just trying to get you guys to say some questions so I can blow my nose. That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh.
I'm just like, come on, someone talk. What a mute.
All right, let me see. Well, okay. I can grab it. I mean, I hate crafting, but high-level crafting, will it be inspired by complexity like Star Wars Galaxies? And so their response was, it looks like a lot of them liked the crafting system Star Wars Galaxies. I didn't play Star Wars Galaxies, so I don't know what that crafting system was like. I know what Final Fantasies was like, but I couldn't compare the two. Storms, have you played?
I have not played
Star Wars Galaxies?
No.
Damn. All right, so neither of us have.
This feels like a show where Asari should have been on it because Star Wars Galaxies.
You know, we're going to bring up Star Wars. There you go. Bingo. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. There wasn't a show that him and I were on where he didn't mention Star Wars Galaxies. There are a lot of new games coming out with really, really unique crafting systems. The ones I'm thinking of specifically are Camelot Unchained and Crowfall. And the reason why I say Crowfall is probably fairly interesting is because some of the team that's working on that also worked on Star Wars Galaxies. And if you ever get a chance to look at some of their crafting mechanics, it's pretty in-depth compared to what we're used to now with click recipe. Oh, I have the materials, click a button, and done. So, and as they said here, Star Wars Galaxy had a great crafting system. They nailed resource gathering and crafting as a whole. Was beyond its time. They did a lot of cool things that I think a lot of people were surprised by, and unfortunately it hasn't been used in a big way since. But it's the direction we want to go. Choices made in the crafting system change what you end up with. It's not just about doing X recipe, get Y item. There's thought involved in it, and there's a market to be captured based on those decisions. Crafting is something that I'm really excited about because it does keep the economy going. And the fact that gear breaks, that's a big thing for me. I'm actually still really hoping that we don't see drops in game per se. You kill a dragon, it should be an item you can then craft. Maybe the dragon has a horde. That's where you could find fully completed items. But overall, I would like to see more crafting related stuff. Or even if you got an item, say it was like a base item or something like that. Let's say it's broken. Or it's been in the dragon horde for so long that it needs to be reforged, because if you took it out now, it's pitted, it's kind of rusted, but you could tell it was a legendary item. That'd be really neat to see that get brought back. You know?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. So,
I think...
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think whatever they do with crafting, I think what I'd like to see is they keep saying that it'll be viable, and I'd like to see that as like a thing in its own. Like I could come into the game and be a crafter, right? And be able to sustain myself through quests, whatever the case may be, fully, and flesh out crafting, rather than it be a side add-on that, you know, anyone can pick up and is easy to do. I think in that case, it makes it worthwhile, coupled with something that you just said, which was, you know, if there are no drops and you have to rely on crafters, for all of your equipment, that makes things a little bit different.
Right. And it makes crafters important. That seems to be the problem we've had in modern games. Crafters have lost their importance over time. It's specifically, we've been playing a lot of ESO. And only just recently has my crafting been something where people are like, hey, can you do stuff for me? And that's only because they're brand new to the game and don't have it leveled up for themselves. Once they level it up, they don't need you anymore. Like, I spent months getting my craft, like literally months, because this is before the Crown Store added in like the convenience items of being able to cut research time. It took like 6 months to be a 9 of 9 crafter, to know all 9 traits on an item. Like 6 months. It was a long time. And, you know, I did all that. And at one point, it was fairly interesting because certain sets that you had to craft required that you knew so many of a certain trait. I ran across that tonight with a new player who was like, what does it mean that I need 6 traits in order to craft? I'm like, well, you have to research 6 traits in order to craft that. Well, one of the downfalls of ESO was the crafted sets generally, I shouldn't say they weren't good. Some were, but all the ones that were at the 9 of 9 level, the one that required 9 traits, which took 6 months to do, were worthless. No one used them because they were terrible. All the ones that people wanted were the ones that were at 5 or 6 traits, which was before it really... Because again, if you understood the research of it, you started breaking down an item. It took so many hours, but the first one was 6 hours, the second one was 12, and so on and so forth. By the time you got to 5, it kind of had this little arc where it was going up slowly, but once you got past 6, it shot exponentially to the point where it was like a month to research the 9th trait. So it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. So bring crafting back and make it something that's actually useful and people want it. Make it great again. The final question, this is probably one that I think we can all talk about because this is something that's really exciting.
Ooh,
Can you go over the details of the official mobile app that is attached to the game? So, of course, they answered they will implement it, and it's going to include things such as node notification, crops that need rotating, castle that's about to fall, castle siege that's happening, etc. And they said, think of a D&D campaign where you play the game live, then in between sessions, you can have downtime conversations between the GM and the players. That is what we hope the mobile app is, the in-between session for non-active mechanics and downtime. You know, rotating your crops, et cetera, et cetera. What are your guys' thoughts on this? I'm going to let you go. Go nuts.
I think that's amazing. I think the ability to, and if they add what they add to it, but if you have the ability to have this, you know, I like the look of the downtime conversations between GMs, right, and the players. That is fantastic. We used to do that all the time when we'd play. We'd play on the weekends, so the whole week we had conversations that were in downtime, but things are still happening in game, right? But to be able to see this on your mobile app, I don't know how I'm going to hide this at a meeting.
I'm going to figure out how to do it
while I'm in a meeting, right? I don't know what
you're
talking
doing?
about.
I'm just really checking the servers.
I'm checking the castles. The
servers.
Yes.
Well, how long does it take you to check your email? Really long email. It'll probably be about 3 minutes so I can rotate the crop. I mean, swipe to the next email.
Gotta rotate the vendors. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this is exciting. I'm really looking forward to be able to do this. I hope not only do they have these notifications of things happening, but allow you to check things like builds, what you have in your inventory on a mobile app.
That would be neat.
Right? 'Cause, I don't want to do anything in the mobile app. I want to look at it and say, hey, you know, I'm doing some theory crafting. What exactly? Do I have this again? What do I think I have? I don't have to write it out in a spreadsheet. I can pull it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Google Drive will be a lot smaller.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Oh, and no, I am excited about that one and the previous one are just
My
amazing.
most important thing is guild management.
No, that's true. They didn't mention that, but that would be
well.
a great thing.
I think they sort of mentioned in one way, but it'd be neat to be able to. yes, we have Discord, and a lot of our guild, Hands of Fate, talks in Discord. But sometimes if people are in-game, it's still a little different. So if you were able to chat with the guild chat in-game using the app, oh, that would be fantastic. And from a guild leader perspective, I'd love to be able to kick people from the guild. If if it became an issue, like somebody sent me a message going, hey, Alpha Soul is, I don't know, raiding the entire guild bank right now. I can get in there, shut that off, or kick him before he can do a lot of harm. It's like, I'm in the middle of a meeting, I can't log in right now. Oh, hold on. Kick. Done. Or lock the guild bank, or anything like that, I think would be neat to see. Yeah. I know we talked about that in a previous episode as well, about what you could do with the guild, but it'd be neat to do it from a mobile app. And WoW's mobile app is popular for a reason. Like, theirs is for an auction house, but they do have guild chat. They do have the armory where you can look at your character, all the gear you're wearing, stuff like that. I really think at least the guild chat and the armory are things that need to happen. And later on, remember what WoW did? Again, I know I bring up WoW. People always are like, why are you bringing up WoW? Well, because no other game's really done it. Okay, let's just really be frank here. Your little indie or your little Korean game has never done an app, at least that was released in the US, that would allow you to do stuff. But remember when Legion came out, and then you had your missions that your NPC followers would do? You could actually send them off on missions. Yeah. You could collect the missions. You could manage all that from the app. And I thought that was really, really neat. People were actually going back and clamoring, going, can you retroactively go back and allow me to do crop rotation on my Mista Pandaria farm? And they're like, no. No, we're not wasting development time on something that people have already moved on from. But thanks for the suggestion.
So you realize the engine they're using allows them to create not only, Ashes of Creation, but allows them to create mobile for Android 9 OS.
I did not.
Right, so they can do that, and they can work with the same setups, work with the same languages. It's just tremendous ability to be able to do that. It's a great time.
Huh. That is pretty neat. Nice. Yeah, the mobile app confirmation obviously was one of my favorite parts of this entire thing. So.
Oh yeah, I'm excited about that.
I am gonna laugh.
I'm curious when.
Oh, when? Because they did say this would be something that would come post-launch. So I hope it doesn't get lost in the weeds or whatever.
Yeah, there's my concern is, it becomes a day 2 item, right? Which always become then tickets versus base 2 item, right? Day 2 items always seem to lose importance as you go along. And being that they're, again, the same engine, I would really think you could pull these together and you'd want to have that. I really do.
So? I don't know why you wouldn't, to be frank. You know what I mean?
You have the developers. You already have back end all set up. You're gonna be connecting to you want to make it the front end look a little different, but you're gonna use the same set of assets to go ahead and do that. It would be a very interesting technique to try and pull that off. But especially when you're pulling from the same engine, if that's what they're doing, they may not be, right? But if they are pulling from the same code set to build this, you'd think they'd want to do that at launch.
Alpha Soul, any final thoughts on this before we close up?
No, only the one question that we kind of skipped over that I thought was interesting as well too was the cheating question and how they plan on dealing with cheating. I just really hope, and I have no reason to believe that they wouldn't, that they get out in front of all of the RMT and various like cheats that just show up in almost any MMO as it starts, and just stop it at the get-go.
I wouldn't know how they would even do that, though. I know everyone says that. Other than the mass bannings, it's really hard to get.
I think if they approach it from there, if you notice the second paragraph is where it really got my attention, is they're talking in data-driven activity. So they're going to go into analytics to look for who's doing what. If they're going into analytics and looking at movement and such to look for bots or anything like, they're going to find that fast. You're going to be able to get that as long as they have the right algorithms to pull out the similarities or differences of how a person would behave versus a bot, you're going to catch that quick. But to me, that's intriguing. I'd like a whole segment on that. So.
That we're gonna have to let Storms write his own segment. Just let him go nuts on that part.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we'll reach the end of this episode of From the Ashes. So, from my co-host Alpha Soul, where can people find you?
Yeah, I could be found on YouTube at the channel DRACDOC. And I can also be found in the Dungeon Crawler Network, specifically on the Hands of Fate channel, where I idle.
There you go. Stormzlord.
Well, you can find me on Saturday nights in ESO, either doing IC or CERN's Charting Trials this Saturday as well. It's always fun. You can find me on Twitter at Stormzlord, also digitalpiper.com on Twitter, as well as our website. We now have 2 different applications in beta. We have a let's call it like a Candy Saga type application. We're waiting on Facebook to approve it so we can move it into Facebook, and we have a word search app that we just put into beta as well.
Nice.
So we are moving forward pretty quick and having a good time.
And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Aggelos, AGGELOS_DCN. And of course, if you're interested in joining the DCN community for Ashes of Creation, check out our guild, Hands of Fate, which is the chapter of the Dungeon Crawler Network, a gaming community forged by the listeners of our gaming podcast. We've created an amazing gaming community and family. Come be a part. We cover a wide range of gaming preferences from PC to console. We have developed a community that ranges from the super casual to the cutting edge of hardcore players, and we strive to create an environment where we can support all play styles while enjoying each other's company. We are a PvX guild based out of the North American Data Center with players from all over the world. We have scheduled events for each region's prime time, so if you're an EU or Oceanic resident but have enjoyed playing with us in the past, or for the first time, we encourage you to come check us out. The guild's focus is on progression rating, small-scale PvE, crafting and gathering, node-based PvP, aka the open world, and community growth. And of course, you can follow everything we do over at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon program at patreon.com/dungeoncrawlernetwork. If you want to help support the show, you can also do that by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and sometimes it matters. Thank you for joining us on this episode of From the Ashes, and we'll see you next time. See you later.